Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country 104.9.
You know what? It's Friday morning, 8:30. So checking in from Dallas, Texas, Big D, professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at bigfanboy.com, the show director at Dallas Comic Show, the one and only Mr. Mark Walters. Everybody, he's back.
What is up, my man?
Man, I'm telling you what, now, we had an off week last week. Everybody, you were busy. We had a lot going on here as well, too. And I always, honestly, Mark, I get a little sad when I don't get to talk to you once a week. I'm going to be honest. You might be my man crush. I don't know.
Suck it up, Buttercup. We'll be fine. No, I apologize. I was at Fantastic Fest down in Austin.
Yeah.
And this is something that I've gone to a couple times before. There's of course the big film festival, which is the South by Southwest, which is earlier in the year. But Fantastic Fest is something that happens late in the year, and it's kind of a smaller. Well, I say smaller. It brings in a lot of people, but the opening night movie that we got to see, which I can talk to you about,
okay,
which is even cooler. I got to see the new Halloween.
Yo, really? Everybody's excited about that. Yeah, so the new Halloween, which is, how many years is it now since the original one?
It has been 40 years.
Man, oh man, dude, we are old. That's crazy.
Yeah, we are. Well, it's funny because I was thinking about it, and, I saw the original Halloween. I think I was at a friend's house. Like, I went and stayed the night at a friend's house, and I'm guessing it was probably on, some iteration of cable TV or something at the time. Because,
right. Well, let me say this real quick, if I can interrupt for a moment. I think that younger people do not realize the struggle was real. Back in the day, first of all, your parents didn't let you watch rated R movies. You didn't go to horror films in the theaters. You couldn't get away with seeing them at the theaters because there wasn't, a punk 16-year-old kid at the gate that didn't care. There was actually a responsible adult making sure kids weren't sneaking in. And then, of course, internet didn't exist. Bootlegging didn't exist. I mean, it was like really hard for us to see rated R movies, horror movies. We just kind of had to spend the night at an irresponsible parent's house, a friend of ours' parents that was just super, lax.
Yeah, I think I saw, in my youth, I saw more rated R movies and more horror movies at friends' houses than I did by actually going to the theater. You're absolutely right about that. There was kind of this fun little, I guess, sort of sneaky stealth thing about it.
Yeah.
And in a way, it made the experience a little more magical because of that. But yeah, there was something kind of funny about that. So I remember seeing it, and Halloween made a big impression on me as a kid because I remember it being the first time where I'd seen a movie that really kind of put the fear in me of, the idea of like a holiday or something like that becoming scary.
Right. Yeah.
Up until that point, I think the only other kind of horror movie I had seen was, maybe something like Friday the 13th or something like that. And there was enough of a disconnect with that because it's like, hey, those are kids at a camp. I'm not at a camp right now. But when you see a movie like Halloween, and Halloween is like a holiday that as a kid you celebrate.
Absolutely.
Out and you trick-or-treat and whatnot. Suddenly now you get the fear of God put in you.
Because you're out in the streets, you're in a costume, you're in the dark, in a street, and there's a crazy man on the loose. Yeah, it's a very real thing that a kid or a teenager can connect to.
And it's also interesting because I don't think anybody realized at the time that John Carpenter, the brilliant John Carpenter, had literally created a movie concept that would, for 40 years following, be imitated, duplicated in every possible way.
Yeah.
The whole concept of the final girl, the whole concept of, this kind of slasher killer type thing. I mean, he literally created this thing that we have been, bastardizing for many, many years ever since. But hey, we're getting off on a tangent.
Yeah. So tell me about the new one. What do we got? What can we expect when we see the brand new Halloween?
Well, I got to tell you, you guys are going to see it on bigfanboy.com. But I got to interview. I did some red carpet interviews with the writers of the film, which is Danny McBride and his college buddy, whose name escapes me at this particular moment. I apologize, but Danny McBride, of course, a lot of people know for Pineapple Express and things like that. He actually wrote this film, which is very impressive because there's not a lot of comedy in the movie.
I was going to say,
it really works pretty well. David Gordon Green, who directed Pineapple Express, is the director of the film. executive produced the film and did the music for the film. So you actually have kind of that classic John Carpenter score on the movie. And then, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis coming back to the role of Laurie Strode. Now, what's really cool about this movie, and the reason I mentioned that I interviewed them was because, for me, it was kind of a bucket list sort of thing to be able to talk to Jamie Lee Curtis because of the fact that I've enjoyed her movies so much through the years, and because I was such a big fan of the original Halloween. So that was really cool to be able to kind of just, sit there and talk with her for a minute.
Oh, and for guys our age, she's one of the original, sex symbols, too, let's be honest. You know what I mean? She was just gorgeous and, scream queen, just amazing, very talented, but just somebody that, I remember just going, wow.
Yeah, and she still looks good. I mean, in the movie, when you see the new movie, they really kind of ugly her up because in the movie, the way she's playing the role of Laurie Strode, and it's an interesting concept because the concept in the movie deals with the idea that here you have this girl who, when she was younger, she watched this killer kill these people that she knew and ended up kind of stabbing her, nearly killing her. The guy, gets away or whatever. Or in this concept, in the new movie, they play it a little bit differently. They capture Michael, they put him in an insane asylum, and he's there for 40 years. But what's really, really interesting about it is the fact that it kind of deals with the idea that this girl, Laurie Strode, the very next day, she had to go back to school. She had to go back to her life. She had to continue her life knowing and seeing the things that she saw that night. And what does that do to a person? What does that make a person into? And I think that's endlessly fascinating, the idea that they would play off of that and say, we're going to take this character that had to be psychologically damaged and severely traumatized, and yet they still had to go back to school the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that's brilliant. That's just absolutely brilliant. And they've had to live with it for 40 years.
Man.
And what does that do to a person? Also knowing that the person that traumatized them is still alive, that they're still out there, and that there's still ability that one day they may escape and they may come back. And so that's what really kind of drives the film. And I thought that, as a concept, I thought that was really kind of brilliant. I think that's a great way to kind of, introduce this new movie to a new generation. So as you've seen, if you've seen the trailers, what happens, of course, Michael does escape. He goes back out. He goes back on another killing spree. Now Laurie, who is now a grandmother, has a daughter as well as a granddaughter. She's trying to protect her family and trying to convince them that, this danger, this threat is legit and that it's real and that they need to be concerned about it. And, of course, everybody in town thinks this is just crazy old Laurie Strode, that she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Wow.
Everybody's lived for 40 years without any problems. There's never been a reason to worry about it. One thing this movie does do, it ignores all of the other Halloween sequels.
Right,
so
right.
If you're a Halloween movie fan and you watched Halloween 2 through, I don't know, what did they get up to? 10? Yeah. I don't even remember.
Exactly.
If you liked all those other movies, this movie with a single line of dialogue kind of dismisses all those movies. It basically says, oh yeah, there were other stories people told, but this is what really happened.
Awesome.
This is basically saying that this is the first true sequel to the original movie. So yeah, ignore all those other films. The only movie that existed within this timeline is the first film.
Well, that's kind of cool because if you haven't maybe seen all 10 or a dozen of them, you can just watch the original and then go straight into this one and not feel like you're missing anything, which is really great for those who haven't been paying attention.
Yeah, it's a brilliant idea. It's a great way to kind of follow up the original and at the same time not have to be true or necessarily explain all those other films.
Now, hey, well, let me ask this real quick, because you made it sound pretty interesting, kind of psychological and kind of cerebral. But for those who just go to, because I think that these days you've got a couple of different kinds of horror fans. You got horror fans that kind of want to be thrilled, they want to see a story, they want to see something unfold, and they want to be scared. And then you got people that just want to see gore and fright. You know what I mean? Just a bunch of senseless killing. For those that like a story, or those who prefer just a whole bunch of gore, where does this lie within all that kind of landscape?
Well, let me tell you, the one thing that I think I loved most about the new Halloween, if I had to pick out like the single aspect of it, is the fact that this is a back-to-basics horror movie. This is kind of like a simple, we're not going to complicate it, we're not going to try to do anything really nuts. We're just going to give you a very simple, straightforward slasher film. And I love that about it. I love the fact that it's not trying to be something else. It's not trying to be something unique or anything. It's really just sort of a loving nod to like the slasher films of like the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s, and it does that quite well. I mean, like there's a moment in the film which again I think is shown in the trailer, so it's not a huge spoiler to say this, but there's a moment when Michael kind of first gets back out there and starts kind of going around and doing some killing and whatnot, and it's very kind of raw. It's like you're just watching this guy go do his thing, and there's no real explanation about it. Like the people he goes after they're not characters that are important to the script. They're just random people that he's killing because he's just a crazed killer. And there's something about watching that kind of unfold on the screen that really is kind of unnerving and effective for what it is, but it also kind of reminds you of the fact that this film isn't trying to be anything that the original wasn't. This is just a straightforward horror movie, and it's about a guy that's kind of this undeniable force that's out there killing people. And so yeah, you'll definitely get if you're in it for the gore, you'll definitely get that. There is plenty of gore in the movie, and there are certain moments that are particularly gory or particularly disturbing and effective. But if you're also just kind of in it because you're a horror fan, I think you'll be very, very satisfied. I mean, there is a moment kind of late in the film where it does sort of turn into a different type of movie, but not in a bad way. Like it doesn't, again, like I said, it doesn't try to be anything overly ambitious. It doesn't try to be anything that it shouldn't be. It just kind of delivers exactly what you want from a Halloween movie. They basically made another Halloween movie that works kind of as well or on the same level as the original film, while sort of pushing the narrative forward a little bit. And I think it'll be really interesting to see. First of all, it'll be interesting to see how this one does and how it performs with audiences. I think it's going to be a huge hit. I think people are going to love this film. But I think it'll also be interesting to see if they decide they want to continue this.
Right.
They decide they want to maybe sequelize this from this point, because they actually have set it up in a really interesting way to where they could. They don't have to. Like they could basically do this as a one and done type of sequel. But if they wanted to, they absolutely could continue it. And another thing that it does is it sort of effectively washes away the stain of those Rob Zombie movies. Because I don't know if you saw the Rob Zombie Halloween movie.
Yeah, I did.
The first one's not bad. The second one is just it's terrible.
Yeah, no, I I was working at the rock stations in Dallas when those came out, so we sponsored those. And when you're in a rock radio station, Rob Zombie's king. So I was surrounded by people who just absolutely loved what he did with those films, and I was not impressed. And I love Rob Zombie, but he needs to stick to the music. But getting back to the new one, sounds like they're going in the right direction.
So I was very happy with it. I'll have a more full review on my site as it gets a little bit closer to the film, but because there's still a ways away before this actually opens.
Right. Well, I'm excited about it. Like I've said before many times, I'm not a huge fan of the horror genre, but that's kind of one of those franchises that's always worth your attention. So again, that's Halloween, the brand new one, Halloween 2018. It's going to be out in theaters October 19th, so you got a couple of weeks till that comes out. Clocks in at 1 hour and 49 minutes. Now, when you were at the fest in Austin, you said you did you see Night School and or Hellfest also?
Well, no, I saw Night School.
Okay.
This week, that actually wasn't part of the festival, but that does open up this weekend.
Oh, okay, but you saw that one.
Yeah, I did see that one, and this is another Kevin Hart comedy. This one's got Tiffany Haddish, and it's obviously Tiffany Haddish is super, super hot right now. Everybody's talking about her.
She's super, super hot in general.
Yeah, she's got multiple movies coming out, because she's got Night School, and then she's also got The Oath, which I believe opens up on October 12th, which is also really, really good. Night School is, I got to be honest, I mean, I like Kevin Hart, I enjoy his comedies, but this one just didn't quite hit the mark for me. I mean, it's funny. It's got some funny moments. It's got a great cast of people. Rob Riggle's in it. Romany Malco. A lot of familiar faces. Taron Killam from Saturday Night Live. A lot of familiar faces, and everybody seems like they're having fun with it and doing a really great job. But the movie itself, I don't know. It feels very formulaic. It feels very kind of by the numbers for a comedy. There's no real surprises in it. And some of the humor in it feels really kind of maybe forced or over the top. There's a couple of scenes, like there's one gross out scene in particular that I could have just done without. You know, I think half the audience was covering their eyes because it was just so gross. You know, it's one of those movies that, I mean, the concept behind it seems basic and simple enough to where it should work, but it's just such a disposable and forgettable type of comedy that I think in the end it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth. Now, that's not to say, I mean, if you like those types of movies, if you like Kevin Hart comedies, you know, you'll find some stuff in there that you'll enjoy, but it just didn't really quite hit the mark for me. I was kind of hoping that maybe this would be something sort of like in the vein of that Rodney Dangerfield classic Back to School or something like that.
Yeah, it looks like a kind of a Back to School or maybe like a was it Billy Madison kind of, you know, guy goes back to school and proves himself kind of thing.
Right. And instead, it just feels very kind of pedestrian and very, like I said, very formulaic. The secret weapon in the movie, if there is a secret weapon, though, is Tiffany Haddish, because she really is giving 110%, and her character, you know, is kind of what drives that film and is sort of the saving grace of it. So she is great. I still think she's got nowhere to go but up. She's got a lot of, you know, really great, you know, films ahead of her, I'm sure. But as a Kevin Hart comedy, this one kind of left me wanting at the end, I hate to say. But that does open up this weekend. That's the only film I saw that opens up this weekend that I can talk about. But before we go, I did want to mention a couple of things. One, the last film I saw, or one of the last films I saw at Fantastic Fest, which was last Saturday, which also does not open up, I think, for another month or so, was Overlord.
Oh.
The J.J. Abrams produced film. It is set in World War II. I'm trying to think of what I can say that doesn't really give away a major plot point, because I believe it's in the trailers. But it basically deals with a group of American soldiers that are trying to attack a Nazi base, and they find out that in this base the Nazis are experimenting on people and turning them into something horrific. I think I can get away with saying that.
All right.
Without that being a major spoiler. And so, yeah, Overlord's kind of a cool flick. If you like those types, if you like horror movies, but if you like seeing something that maybe is a little bit different, it almost has, in a weird way, it almost has kind of like a throwback, kind of like a Dirty Dozen feel to it. And I was talking to some of the actors that were in the film because they did a big red carpet premiere and whatnot. And a lot of the actors that are in the film you've seen in other movies. The main character is played by Giovanna Depo, who was terrific in Fences. Wyatt Russell, who is Kurt Russell's son, plays one of the key characters in the film.
Oh, cool.
He was terrific in Everybody Wants Some, and he's really, really good in this. And there's really fun kind of shades of, like, you'll watch certain scenes with him, and you'll be like, wow, it's like watching a young Kurt Russell. You know, it's really kind of fun in a way, seeing Wyatt Russell, you know, pop up in more and more movies. And it's got kind of that sort of J.J. Abrams Bad Robot sort of box of mystery surrounding it, to where you never really quite know what's coming next. My only real complaint about it was I feel like they could have gone a little bit further with it. I think they could have gone a little crazier with it towards the end, because there's certain things that they show you in the movie that certainly could have been expanded upon, and instead they sort of kind of keep it to like a really basic type of horror film. And that's not to say that it doesn't work or that it's bad. I just would have liked to have seen them gone a little more crazy with it. So, but yeah, that opens up, I think, either next month or maybe November, actually, now that I think about it.
I'm looking online, it says November 9th.
Put that on your radar, Overlord.
All right, Overlord. Again, that's going to be November 9th, and that one clocks in at 1 hour, 50 minutes. You got a nice early word from Mark Walters on that one. And you'll have, I guess, reviews up for most of the stuff we've been talking about here at bigfanboy.com?
Absolutely, yeah. We'll have some of those reviews are going to be posted a little bit closer to the film's releases, just because that's the way the studio wishes it. They always like the reviews to come a little bit closer to actual release date.
Sure, yeah.
So, but you will be able to see our Halloween interviews, and you'll be able to see the Overlord interviews we'll have those posted in the next week or so. So watch for those. And then also, we want to mention, of course, like we need to tell you, some of you people might not realize that it did come out this week. Solo, a Star Wars story, is now on Blu-ray.
Oh, I'm so excited. I haven't got my copy yet. Did you already you got yours already?
No, I've been so tied up with this festival, I'm kind of behind, but I'm going to try to either hit the store tonight or tomorrow and pick up a copy, because I really want to revisit that. I enjoyed that quite a bit, and I want to revisit it and see. I believe the Blu-ray has some really nice deleted scenes on it, so I'm looking forward to seeing that.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully there's like some kind of commentary, because I would love to sit, next to somebody while they talk through the movie. That'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, Mark. Well, thanks again. As always, we appreciate all the information and what, doing what you do. Let's give it up once again for professional Q&A moderator and speaker, film critic at bigfanboy.com, show director at Dallas Comic Show, Mark Walters, everybody. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, my friend.
Fanboy Friday with Mark Walters and Robert Miguel.
Coyote Country 104.9.